I bought another boat. I bought another boat. I'm joking, of course. I never would buy a boat without talking to my wonderful wife. Again. In all seriousness, though, I am buying a boat. It's a 1984 Compact 23, so it's about 4 feet longer than the Compact 19 I'm sitting on right now. It's in pretty good shape, but I got it as a project boat, so we're going to be working on it over the winter, and then selling either this boat or the other bigger boat come spring when boat prices are in a little bit better shape than they are right now. I wouldn't normally double up on boats like that, but I got a fantastic price on it. A really great deal. It's in pretty good shape. It's a pretty decent model version of that boat. The only downside is that it's about 1,000 miles away. And it's right before the holidays. So while my loving wife was very supportive of me getting a project and getting another boat, she drew the line at abandoning her with the kids 2 weeks before the holidays, when I cannot fault her for that. So a few days after Christmas, I've got a truck rental lined up. We'll drive all the way out there, load up the boat. Hopefully it's in as good shape as I'm hoping it is, and then have some sort of adventure getting it back here. Some question as to how good the boat's going to be. Some question as to how good it's going to tow, but either way, it's going to be quite the adventure. So stay tuned and you'll get to see it. Okay, enough of that silliness. Let's actually talk about some boats now. As you can see, my lovely wife was gracious enough to let us bring the boat inside for a little bit. It's a pretty decent workspace here, but we can't get too messy, and we got to move the boat in and out a lot because we use the space for other things. But for now, it's a great place to set up. It's above freezing because it's getting pretty cold out and things have started freezing out there. You can see that we've got a fan over on this end. I've been blowing some air through the boat. It's definitely a lot drier. The foam still feels wet though, so that's going to be a continuous process, just trying to dry it out. From what I've read online, they say you can get a lot of the water out, but you can never get quite all of it, so the foam may always be just a little bit down. The most important thing though is to get the fiberglass really dry, because when you go to do fiberglass repairs, if you have water on the fiberglass or in the fiberglass, the repair can fail. As we mentioned in the last video, this is a 1981 Phantom sailboat. The Phantom was very similar to the Sunfish sailboat, which was in production then and continues to be in production now. The Phantom was built primarily in the 80s, although it was then transitioned. It was also called the Pointer 14 for a little bit because it's 14 feet long. They're very similar to the Sunfish. You can actually use a lot of parts from one to the other, which is good because getting parts for this boat isn't really easy at this point. There are a few minor differences in the construction methods and some of the trim that we can talk about later. But for the most part, they're very, very similar. The only downside is that because the Phantom wasn't as popular and there weren't as many made, finding resources for how to repair them or how they should have been put together in the first place can be a little difficult. And you can see some of those challenges here. This is the rudder assembly. And it's a little bit odd in that the tiller is actually aluminum, and it looks original, but it's just anodized aluminum. And it's been broken. It looks like it's been broken here at some point, with something kind of riveted on and then wrapped in electrical tape, and we'll look into that a little bit later. It's very similar to a sunfish rudder. The pintle, or how it attaches to the boat, is a little bit different. It might be similar to the old style sunfish. The new style sunfish have a spring assembly here that's a little bit easier to get on and off. The biggest problem that we had with this when we took Max's boat out is that there's nothing keeping the rudder down when it's mounted to the boat. And so every once in a while when we were sailing, the rudder would start going towards the back of the boat or come all the way out of the water, which doesn't do anything for the sailing performance, but it does up the excitement level a lot when you can't steer anymore. The modern sunfish, at least, now have a spring that goes from the rudder up to this head assembly here. And that's positioned so that if the rudder is up, it's past the pivot point and it holds the rudder up. And then when you push the rudder down, it's below the pivot point and it holds the rudder down. I've ordered a set of those springs and the pin that goes to the rudder to hold them. The other side of that spring on the sunfish is actually molded into this assembly. So we're going to have to take this assembly off and drill some holes in it or something like that to get a mounting point for that other side of the spring. We'll try that. The rudder is not original to the boat. One of the previous owners, I do have the original rudder, but it was plywood and it's falling apart. One of the previous owners made this. It looks pretty good. It seemed to perform okay. There's a little bit of marks on the wood here and it's not finished great. So there's a little room for improvement. The finish on it isn't very thick either, so I suspect that over time this would get some water damage, so we may strip this down and bring it up a little bit. You can also see here where the previous owner used bolts that weren't original and they were too long, and instead of getting locking hardware, they just doubled up the nuts, which works in a pinch, but isn't really a great long-term solution. The paint's also flaking off really bad, so we'll probably strip this down and refinish it. Maybe, depending if we can get that spring off. The tiller extension over here is also, it looks like it might be original, but it's pretty loose and wobbly. And given that falling off while you're under sail would be not so much fun, we may fix that. The dagger board was also made by the previous owner, and it has a couple more issues. If you compare this to the rudder, there's not nearly as much edge on this. It's rounded over, but it's not really that sharp like an airfoil. And when you get really any speed at all, this starts vibrating like crazy, almost like a speed limiter on a car. And it was really no fun. So we'll be putting this on the bench, and if nothing else, bringing the shape down a little bit. Judging by the wood and the fact that it's painted instead of stained, I suspect this may also just be a pine or something, so we may end up refabricating this out of something else, but at a minimum we're going to try and bring those edges down a little bit to make sailing it a little easier. But the dagger board is going to be an experience for the day. Right now I want to take the rudder assembly apart a little bit because I'd like to be able to paint or otherwise finish this part, and we're going to have to replace the tiller handle, which unfortunately is held in with rivets. So I'm going to start by just taking these doubled nuts off. see that it's where it's been rubbing up against this other piece of metal here. There's some sharp edges here, a little bit of a burr raised there that's been really digging into the wood there. You can see that there. And actually, from looking at this, it looks like this is probably pine as well. Let's take this other bolt off. Oops. So these bolts are just look like they're maybe just zinc plated or something like that. Probably replaced with some sort of stainless. Interesting. So yeah, so this piece of wood is just a little bit thinner than this bracket. You had a couple washers just shoved in there. Not a horrible idea because it's going to keep it from rubbing. It looks like a little one there and one there. It'd be even better to have them on both sides to try and center it a little bit, or to have a piece of wood that fits a little better. Disassembly. Oopsies. I'm not entirely sure what this is made out of. It feels heavy for aluminum. It rings a little better than aluminum would too. Pretty beat up. The paint's chipped off pretty bad, but I'm not sure. And I had been thinking I was just going to refinish it, or strip it down, sandblast it, and then repaint it. But there's this spring here, and it's not really clear to me that it's riveted, and we could just replace the rivets. I don't know, we'll have to see. We'll have to look and see how well that works. Let me go grab a knife to get this repair opened up. Okay, got a knife. We're just gonna, this is just electrical tape that someone has put over this to repair to try and cut down the sharp edges, which on the one level you have to respect. I can't really fault them for not replacing this piece because it's all held together with rivets, which is more than a little daunting even for me. This also looks like anodized aluminum, and I'm not sure if you can buy pre-anodized aluminum tube, which would be really convenient if you can. This isn't recent, whatever it is, because this electrical tape is very crusty. Okay. So they didn't break it, or they didn't break it through. If you look closely right there, you can see that side is broken, and they put a patch over it. This side's just dented, but you can see where it definitely bent. They just used some zinc-plated straps on either side, and looks like a random piece of metal they had lying around, with a whole host of sheet metal screws. And underneath the electrical tape, that's all corroded just from the moisture of being near water. So we'll go online and see if we can find something to fix that, or just replace this piece. Look at my options for rivets. I don't know if these are pop rivets or not, but pop rivets are easy, but not necessarily very strong. It'd be nice if we could get something that was pre-anodized, and something for this chinkiness here. They do sell rubber kind of fits all hinges almost, specifically for these tiller extensions. But they're for round ones, and so we'd have to replace the extension as well. So yeah, so I'll look into cleaning this up, maybe prep it for paint what I can get to on it, maybe just mask off the part. The part that's underneath this spring isn't is in decent shape, so I may just mask that off and repaint the rest of it. As long as I keep it black, it'll look okay. See if we can find this metal, and if so, we'll take it apart and try and replace it. Touch up this part a little here, take that burr off. And then in a future episode, we'll look at the woodwork and replace or repair what we can here. With that, coming up on time, I got to go pick up the boys from school, and we'll flip the boat over and look at some stuff on the bottom. But we'll keep that for next episode. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, or share it with your friends. We're having fun, and we hope you're having fun watching too.